The boy next door had a vicious tongue, always mocking my weight for laughs. At our high school graduation dinner, someone joked that Cory and I were childhood sweethearts. He slammed his fork down, face twisting in disgust. Are you insane? Who'd like a whale like Wendy? I hang out with her out of pity. The table roared. Carter, our class president, frowned. You're blind, Cory. Wendy's bone structure is better than anyone here. If she lost the weight, you wouldn't be fit to tie her shoes. Silence flickered. Then laughter exploded again. Serious, Carter? Her Cory scoffed, eyeing me mockingly. If she loses weight and looks half as good as Bella, I'll kneel and apologize. But we all know that'll never happen. More howls of laughter under the table. My fists clenched. 8 years of secret feelings shattered in that instant. That night, I stood before my full-length mirror. 5'8", 200 pounds. I made 2 quiet decisions. 1. I would lose the weight. I would not follow him to Colombia. Back at the restaurant, Bella, the reigning prom queen, had laughed the loudest. He deliberately dropped a greasy piece of pork belly onto my plate. Don't be sad, Wendy. Eat up. A full stomach makes you forget everything. Someone else immediately chimed in. Exactly. Our Wendy doesn't need a boyfriend. A plate of ribs is all she needs. The table exploded again. Cory leaned back in his chair, a lingering smirk playing on his lips as he scrolled through his phone. He acted completely detached, like the humiliation he just orchestrated had nothing to do with him. Carter shot him a dark look, but chose not to start a fight. Meanwhile, Bella leaned over and whispered something directly into Cory's ear. Cory let out a low, husky chuckle. It wasn't loud, but in the chaotic room, I heard it perfectly. I set my chopsticks down on the ceramic rest. I'm heading out. Bella instantly plastered on a mask of fake concern. Wendy, please don't be mad. We were honestly just joking around. I ignored her completely. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the exit. As I passed Cory's chair, he didn't even bother to look up. He was too busy texting Bella. I stopped right beside him. Cory. He finally lifted his head, his eyes laced with heavy impatience. What? Every single word you said today. My voice was eerily quiet. One day you are going to regret them. He raised an eyebrow, letting out a dismissive scoff. Me? Regret? I guarantee you, I will never. I didn't stick around to hear the rest. I pushed the heavy restaurant doors open and walked out into the night. The street was suffocatingly quiet. My hands were shaking violently, but I refused to let a single tear fall. It wasn't that I didn't feel the pain. It was because it hurt so deeply that crying felt completely useless. My best friend, Gemma, chased after me, grabbing my wrist tightly. Wendy, I swear to God, I will go back in there right now and dump a drink on his. Gemma. I cut her off, my voice raw and scraped hollow. Just walk with me. The amber street lights stretched our shadows out across the pavement. We walked for a long time before I finally spoke again. He's right about one thing. I am 200 pounds. But he said I could never lose it. I'm going to make him eat those words. Gemma bit her lip hard and didn't say a word. She just squeezed my hand tighter. When I finally got home, the house was completely dark. My parents were already asleep. I stood alone in the bathroom under the harsh fluorescent lights. I actually had a medium frame, but it was completely buried. My face was dangerously round, my jawline practically non-existent. But as I leaned closer to the glass, I saw the truth. My eye shape was striking. The bridge of my nose was naturally high, and there was a tiny, delicate beauty mark resting right beneath the outer corner of my eye. Carter's words echoed in my ears. If she ever lost the weight, you wouldn't even be fit to tie her shoelaces. Was it true? I didn't know. But tonight my mind was set. First, I was dropping the weight. My goal was 115 pounds. Second, I unlocked my phone and logged straight into the university admission portal. My cursor hovered over Columbia University's Fine Arts program. I stared at those glowing letters for a long time. I picked that major 3 years ago solely to stay close to Cory. I spent countless sleepless nights perfecting my portfolio, just to make sure we ended up in the same city. Enough. I hit delete. In the search bar, I typed UCLA, distance 3,000 miles away. My thumb hovered over the confirm button. 1 second. 2 seconds. I pressed it. Status submitted. I tossed my phone onto the mattress, switched off the lamp, and stared up at the dark ceiling. I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, an unfamiliar, absolute peace washed over my chest. Wendy, starting tomorrow, you are living for your. The alarm dragged me out of bed at 5 in the morning. The sky outside was still pitch black. I laced up my running shoes, stepped out into the freezing air, and started jogging along the river trail. On the first day, I barely made it a mile before I felt like my lungs were collapsing. By the third day, I pushed it to 2 miles. My knees throbbed so badly, I could barely walk up the stairs. On the 5th day, I finished 3 miles and immediately threw up in the bushes. But I never skipped a single morning. On the evening of the 6th day, I was stretching against the brick wall outside my apartment building when Cory walked up. He was returning from the basketball court, spinning a ball on his finger. He stopped and looked me up and down. "Why are you dripping in sweat?" I didn't answer. I just switched legs and kept stretching. He leaned casually against the wall, his tone dripping with his usual careless arrogance. "People in the group chat are saying you're actually trying to run, to lose weight." I stayed completely silent. He just kept talking, convinced he knew everything. "If you're serious, just buy a gym membership. Jogging on the street won't do anything for a baseline like yours. Honestly, just forget it." He paused, then shifted the topic. "Anyway, Columbia's orientation is September 3rd. Did you join the freshman group chat yet?" My hands briefly stalled. He fully believed I was still going to Columbia. Everyone did. I stood up straight, keeping my face completely blank, and walked toward the lobby doors. He called out from behind me, "Hey, did you join or not? I can send you the invite link." The heavy glass door clicked shut, instantly cutting off his voice. As I walked up the stairs, the corners of my mouth curled up into a cold smile. "Keep waiting, Cory. When September 3rd rolls around, you'll figure it out." On the 8th night, someone dropped a video into our high school group chat. It was a clip of me running along the river, heavy, ragged breathing, a sweat-drenched t-shirt clinging to my back, everything jiggling violently with every heavy step. Whoever filmed it intentionally zoomed in, from the most unflattering angle possible. I am screaming laughing. Wendy is actually trying to exercise. Cory's comment at dinner really did a number on her. Didn't Carter say she had potential? I'm using a magnifying glass and I still can't find a single cheekbone. Bella Caimdin. Keep it up, Wendy. Columbia's art department is packed with gorgeous girls. If you don't slim down before orientation, you're going to feel so insecure. Smiley face. Then Cory's name popped up. My heart skipped a tiny beat. He wrote, "Stop posting this childish crap." Someone immediately teased, "All is Cory catching feelings?" He replied instantly, "You guys have way too much free time. Let her do whatever she wants. What she does has absolutely nothing to do with me." Nothing to do with me. Right. It never had anything to do with him. I secretly loved him for 8 years. And he said it had nothing to do with him. I bled over my sketchbooks for 3 years to get into his dream school. And he said it had nothing to do with him. Fine. From now on, I truly have nothing to do with you. I muted the group chat. I opened Gemma's messages. "I'm going to my grandma's cabin in Montana until college starts. Keep it a secret. If anyone asks, you don't know anything. Gemma." My lips are sealed. "Just promise me you'll come back alive." I smiled and sent an okay emoji. Then I opened my text thread with Cory. I scrolled through 3 years of pathetic, one-sided messages. "My mom made your favorite ribs. Wanna come over for dinner? It started raining. I brought an umbrella to the court for you. Good night." Every single message was left on read. Occasionally he would reply with a cold, "Got it," or "Stop bothering me." I took a deep breath. Delete contact block number. I didn't hesitate for a single second. The next morning, I dragged my suitcase out to the sidewalk. I ran straight into Cory's mother checking her mailbox. "Wendy honey, where are you off to?" "I'm staying with my grandma for the summer." "Mrs. Davis, oh. Well, when Cory comes over for dinner next week." "Mrs. Davis," I smiled politely. "Cory is 18 now. I don't think he needs my mom cooking for him anymore." As I dragged my luggage toward the waiting taxi, a window slid open on the second floor of the house next door. I knew exactly whose bedroom that was, but I didn't look back. Not even once. My grandma's cabin was buried deep in the mountains. Cell service was basically a myth, and Wi-Fi simply did not exist. The moment I arrived, I turned my phone off and locked it in a drawer. Every single morning, I woke up at 5 and ran the brutal mountain trip. In the afternoons, I swam laps in the freezing lake. By evening, I was chopping firewood and hauling soil for my grandma's garden. My diet was violently strict: boiled chicken breast, steamed vegetables, and small portions of complex carbs. Week 1, I dropped 8 pounds, down to 192. Week 2, another 7, down to 185. By week 3, the weight loss started slowing down. I forced myself to add an extra mile to my morning run, and started doing bodyweight strength training in the dirt. Week 4, 175 in exactly 1 month. I had lost 25 pounds. The mirror showed progress, but it wasn't earth-shattering yet. My face wasn't as bloated, but my jawline was still buried. My clothes hung loosely off my frame, making me look like a deflated balloon. I didn't let it break my focus. Keep going. Week 5, 168. Week 6, 160. I turned my phone on for the very first time. Dozens of texts flooded the screen. They were all from Gemma. "Cory texted me. He asked where you went." I played dumb. "He asked me again today. He even asked if you changed your number." LMAO. Guess what he told the guys? He said she's just throwing a tantrum. Give it a few days and she'll come running back. I let out a harsh laugh. Throwing a tantrum? Cory, you really think you are the center of the universe? I kept scrolling. Gemma sent another update. He's getting super close with Bella today. Bella posted a picture of them getting smoothies after his game. The whole group chat is asking if they're officially dating. I stared at the message. I waited for the familiar twist of jealousy in my gut. Surprisingly, there was nothing. It didn't hurt. It genuinely did not hurt anymore. I powered down the phone and went back to training. Week 7, 150. Week 8, 142. The reflection in the mirror started changing violently. My jawline carved itself out. Sharp and defined. My cheekbones surfaced, making it look like my entire face had been re-sculpted from clay. My proportions finally made sense. My collarbones were visible. My legs went from stocky to long and lean. But it wasn't enough. I knew my absolute best was still hiding underneath. Keep going. Week 9. 135. I drove my grandma's rusty truck down to the local pharmacy to pick up her medication. When I handed the prescription to the young girl at the counter, she froze. She stared at my face for an uncomfortably long time. Are you an actress? You look exactly like that girl from. My grandma quickly grabbed the bag and pulled me out the door. When we got back to the cabin, my grandma sat on the porch looking deeply troubled. Your mother was exactly like this, she muttered. Before middle school, she was just a chubby, harmless little thing. Then she lost the baby fat over a single summer, and the entire town went absolutely crazy. But you are much more dangerous than your mother. I laughed it off, thinking she was just being dramatic. Week 10, 128. I turned on my phone for the second time. A fresh text from Gemma. Cory told me to warn you that if you don't join the Columbia freshman group soon, you're going to miss room selections. His exact words. Is she really still throwing a fit? Tell her I'm not going to babysit her on campus, so she better drop the attitude. Reading those words, I couldn't help but smile. He still fully believed I was heading to New York. He still thought I was going to follow him around like a lost puppy. Cory, what kind of fever dream are you living in? I typed a quick reply to Gemma. Don't tell a single soul I'm going to UCLA. Especially him. Let him figure it out the hard way. Gemma replied with a string of laughing emojis. Yes, ma'am. I cannot wait to see the look on his stupid face. Week 11, 120. My grandma officially banned me from going into town. The day before yesterday, when you were reading by the lake, 3 boys from the neighboring ranch sat in their truck and stared at you for 4 straight hours. Did you even notice? It's not that serious, Grandma. Go look in the damn mirror. Did. And then I fell completely silent. The girl staring back at me was a stranger. 5'8", 120 pounds. The weight loss had unlocked every genetic advantage. My bone structure possessed. My features were so sharp. They looked completely painted on. My eyes tipped up slightly at the corners, framed by thick lashes. My lips were a natural, soft rose color. My collarbones looked like resting butterfly wings. And my waist was impossibly narrow. And that tiny beauty mark by the corner of my eye was the final, lethal touch that pushed the face from simply pretty to absolutely breath. The humid, heavy air of New York in early September was nothing like the crisp, pine-scented wind of the Montana mountains. Cory Davis adjusted the strap of his heavy leather duffel bag, his eyes scanning the crowded plaza of Columbia University's campus. The brick buildings were majestic, ivy climbing up the walls, exactly as they had looked in the brochures. Beside him, Bella was taking selfies, her blonde curls bouncing as she tilted her head to find the perfect sunlight. Cory, sweetie, can you carry my tote bag? Bella pouted, handing him a canvas bag stuffed with orientation folders. My shoulders are literally bruised. This campus is so huge. Sure, Cory muttered, taking the bag. He pulled out his phone, his thumb instantly opening the high school group chat. He scrolled past a dozen photos of people packing their dorms, stopping at his direct messages. Still blocked. He let out a short, irritated breath and clicked on Gemma's contact. Cory, is Wendy still at her grandma's? Columbia's orientation starts in 2 hours. She's going to miss the dean's welcome address. A minute passed. Then Gemma's reply came. Gemma, I don't know, Cory. I told you, she hasn't talked to me since she left. Cory, stop playing, Gemma. You guys are joined at the hip. Tell her she's being ridiculous. If she doesn't check in at the fine arts department by noon, they'll release her housing slot to the waitlist. I'm not going to carry her suitcases up the stairs if she shows up late. Gemma, she's not going to ask you to, Cory. Trust me. Cory stared at the screen, a faint, cold prickle of annoyance tightening his chest. He shoved the phone into his pocket, his jaw set in a hard, rigid line. Give it a few days and she'll come running back, he had told the guys at the basketball court back in July. It had been 3 months. Cory, there's Carter. Bella pulled his arm, pointing toward the marble steps of the library. Carter was standing there, dressed in a simple dark gray crew neck and jeans, talking to a university advisor. He looked taller, his shoulders broader, carrying that quiet, effortless authority that had made him the class president. For 4 years. Carter. Bella called out, waving her hand as she and Cory walked up. I didn't know you were in the same freshman seminar as us. Carter turned around, his expression entirely neutral. Bella. Cory. Have you seen Wendy? Cory asked before Bella could speak. His voice carried a defensive, sharp edge that he hadn't intended. She's not in the freshman directory. I tried to look up her room number to drop off her art supplies, but her name didn't show up on the system. Carter looked at Cory for 3 long seconds. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of his mouth, the kind of look a professor gives a student who has confidently answered a question with the wrong formula. You won't find her on the system, Cory, Carter said, adjusting his backpack. Why? Cory's brow furrowed tightly. Did she defer? My mom said her parents didn't say anything about her taking a gap year. She didn't defer, Carter said, his voice quiet, sounding like ice cracking under a heavy boot. She just went somewhere else. Somewhere else. Bella scoffed, letting out a sharp laugh. Like where? Some state school? I told her Columbia's portfolio requirements were too high. Probably couldn't handle the pressure. Carter didn't look at Bella. His eyes stayed locked on Cory's face, watching the confusion slowly morph into a tight, sallow panic. She's at UCLA, Cory, Carter said. Her enrollment was finalized in June. He declined the Columbia offer the morning after our graduation dinner. The light in Los Angeles was white, hot, and smelled of the ocean. I stood in the center of the drawing studio on the 3rd floor of the UCLA Broad Art Center. The high, north-facing windows let in a flood of clean, shadowless daylight, illuminating the 30 wooden easels arranged in a semicircle around the model's platform. All right, class, the professor, an older woman with sharp gray hair and silver rings named Professor Evans, said, tapping her charcoal stick against her easel. For the next 3 weeks, we are focusing on skeletal structure. I don't want to see soft curves. I don't want to see pretty shading. I want to see the bone beneath the skin. If your underlying structure is weak, the rest of your drawing is just grease on a canvas. I sat on my wooden stool, wearing a simple white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up to my elbows, my dark denim jeans loose around my waist. My hair, which had grown long over the summer, was tied back in a messy knot with a wooden pencil. I leaned forward, my charcoal moving across the rough texture of the paper with a firm, deliberate scratch. For 5 years, my life had been a series of small, apologetic movements. I had learned how to sit in chairs without making them creak, how to wear dark colors, to merge with the background, and how to keep my head down so I wouldn't have to see the smug, pitying smiles of Cory and his friends. Now, as I looked at my drawing, I didn't see the whale. The lines of my charcoal were sharp, confident, and entirely unassailable. The hand holding the charcoal was steady, the fingers long and lean, the skin carrying a faint, warm tan from my morning runs along the Santa Monica beach. Wendy. I jumped, nearly breaking my charcoal. Carter was standing behind my easel, a cardboard tray with 2 cups of iced coffee in his hand. He was wearing a USC Trojan sweatshirt. USC was only a few miles down the road from UCLA, and we had run into each other at a regional collegiate art exhibition 2 weeks ago. Carter, I said, a soft, genuine smile breaking through my focus. What are you doing here? Don't you have a lecture at USC? I had a free afternoon, he said, handing me one of the cups. And Eleanor's gallery downtown is hosting a showcase for freshman portfolios next month. I wanted to see if your piece was ready. He stepped closer, his eyes sliding from my face to the canvas in front of me. His expression didn't change, but his shoulders tensed slightly. You lost the weight, he said, his voice dropping into that quiet, private register. 75 pounds, I said, taking a sip of the bitter coffee. My grandma's cabin was very drafty. I had to run to stay warm. Carter looked at me for a long time. His eyes didn't slide over my chest or my waist with the greedy, transactional gaze of the boys next door. He looked at my eyes, then at the tiny beauty mark resting beneath the outer corner of my eye. I was right, he said softly. About what? Your bone structure, he said, a faint smile touching his lips. Though I think I underestimated the shoelaces part. I let out a soft, breathless laugh. It was the first time in 3 years I had laughed without feeling the urge to cover my mouth with my hand. Are you going back for the holidays? Carter asked, leaning against the empty desk beside me. My parents want me home for Thanksgiving, I said, looking out the window at the tall pine trees lining the campus path. They said Mrs. Davis has been asking about me. Apparently, Cory has been in a terrible mood since he went to New York. He's been texting Gemma every day, Carter said. He asked her if you were sick. He still thinks you're hiding because you're embarrassed about your weight. I turned back to my canvas, my charcoal leaving a dark, decisive line across the paper. Let him think whatever he wants, I said. He's 30,000 miles away from my life. The small suburban town of Oak Ridge was quiet when the train pulled into the station in late November. The trees were barren, their dry branches rattling in the cold northern wind, and the streets were covered in a thin, gray slush of half-melted snow. I dragged my suitcase along the sidewalk, my boots clicking a firm, rapid rhythm against the pavement. The house next door, Cory's house, was dark, the old basketball hoop in the driveway sagging slightly, its net torn and covered in ice. Wendy, honey. My mother ran out of our front door, her apron on, her hands trembling as she threw her arms around my neck. The smell of roasted turkey and rosemary instantly washed over me, warm and familiar. Look at you, my mother cried, pulling back to look at my face, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and pure maternal pride. Oh my God, Wendy, you're so beautiful. You look exactly like your grandmother did when she was 20. Thanks, Mom, I smiled, carrying my suitcase into the warm foyer. The house felt smaller than I remembered. The dark wood panels, the floral curtains, the full-length mirror in the bathroom, everything seemed to have shrunk, as if the space had adjusted to the smaller version of me. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. It was a message from Gemma. Gemma. Wendy. The high school group is organizing a Thanksgiving dinner tonight at the old grill downtown. Bella's hosting. Cory's back from New York too. Gemma. Are you coming? Please say yes. I've been keeping your secret for 5 months and my lips are literally bleeding from biting them. I looked at the message, then at my reflection in the hallway mirror. I was wearing a dark green turtleneck sweater that fitted my narrow waist perfectly, a pair of dark denim jeans, and my long hair was loose, falling in soft waves over my shoulders. My face was pale, my jawline sharp enough to cut paper, my eyes bright and clear under the hallway lamp. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel the shaking, suffocating panic that used to seize me whenever I had to face Cory and Bella in public. I felt nothing but a quiet, clean curiosity. Wendy. Tell them I'll be there at 7. The Oak Ridge Grill was the only high-end restaurant in the town, decorated in heavy dark oak and green leather booths, smelling of steak grease and stale beer. At 7:05 p.m., the corner booth near the fireplace was the loudest spot in the room. Bella was sitting in the center, wearing a white silk blouse, her fingers playing with an expensive silver necklace. Cory sat beside her, his wool coat thrown over the back of his chair, his head slightly tilted as he scrolled through his phone. He looked tired, his eyes bloodshot, his mouth set in a permanent, sullen scowl. I'm telling you she's not coming, Bella said, taking a sip of her white wine. Gemma said Wendy's still staying with her grandma because of her depression. Honestly, it's so dramatic. It's been 5 months. Is she really going to hide in the mountains forever, because of a joke? It wasn't a joke. Carter's voice came from the end of the table. He was sitting with his arms crossed, his expression entirely neutral. Oh please, Carter, Bella scoffed. Don't start with the white knight act again. We're in college now. Who cares about high school drama? I care, Cory said suddenly, slamming his phone onto the table. The sound made the silverware rattle. She blocked my number. She blocked my mom's number. My dad had to ask her father for their address in Montana, and her dad told him to mind his own business. He rubbed his temples, his voice carrying a raw, jagged edge of frustration. She's being childish. If she's fat, she's fat. I've known her since we were kids. I'm not going to let her ruin our family's friendship over some petty. Cory. Carter's voice was very quiet, but it had a force that made Cory stop mid-sentence. Carter wasn't looking at Cory. He was looking at the entrance of the restaurant. The heavy oak doors had just opened. The wind from the street blew a few flakes of snow into the foyer, melting instantly on the warm floor. I walked in. I didn't wear a heavy coat. I wore a tailored black trench coat, unbuttoned, revealing the green turtleneck sweater underneath. My heels clicked softly on the wooden floorboards as I walked toward the corner booth. The chatter at the table died instantly. It was the specific, suffocating silence of a room that had just lost its gravity. Bella's glass of wine stopped inches from her lips. The underclassmen who had been laughing at the whale jokes only seconds ago were now staring at me with their mouths slightly open, their eyes wide, wild with a sudden terrified confusion. Hello everyone, I said, my voice carrying easily in the silent room. Cory didn't stand up. He froze, his hand still resting on his phone. His eyes scanned my face, the sharp cheekbones, the high bridge of my nose, the rose-colored lips, and finally, the tiny, delicate beauty mark resting beneath the outer corner of my eye. Wendy. Cory's voice was a high, cracked whisper, completely stripped of his usual careless arrogance. He took a half step out of his chair, his hands reaching toward me as if he were trying to touch a ghost to see if it was real. No, Bella gasped, her face draining of what little color her foundation had left. She clutched her silver necklace, her fingers shaking violently. No, this is a mistake. This isn't her. Who are you? Did Carter hire you to? I am Wendy, Bella, I said, pulling out a chair from the adjacent table and sitting down. I crossed my legs, my long, lean jeans catching the light from the fireplace. Though I see you've adjusted your seating arrangements. The passenger seat must be very comfortable. Wendy. Cory's voice was shaking now, his face pale as paper. He looked at my waist, my collarbones, the sharp, elegant lines of my shoulder. You lost the weight. 75 pounds, I said, looking him dead in the eye. Exactly as Carter predicted. Cory's jaw moved, but no sound came out. A gray, greasy sweat broke out across his temples, matching the oily sheen of the steak plates on the table. You went to UCLA, Cory whispered, his knuckles turning a dry, papery yellow under the skin as he gripped the edge of the table. Why? You promised me. You said we were going to New York together. I bought the train tickets. I didn't promise you anything, Cory, I said, my tone as casual as if I were discussing the weekly lunch menu. I spent 3 years perfecting my portfolio to stay close to you because I thought you loved me. But at our graduation dinner, you told everyone you hung out with me out of pity. I leaned back in my chair, offering him a small, polite smile. I don't need your pity anymore, Cory. I have my own canvas. Wendy, please, Cory stammered, taking a clumsy step toward me. He didn't look at Bella, who was staring at him in shock, her face splotchy and red with a sudden, suffocating humiliation. Cory reached out to grab my wrist, but before his fingers could touch the fabric of my sleeve, Carter stood up and stepped between us. Don't touch her, Cory, Carter said, his voice flat but carrying the unyielding force of a wall. Carter, get the fuck out of my way, Cory screamed, his composure completely shattering as he realized the rope was slipping through his fingers. She's my neighbor. We've been together since we were in diapers. This has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with him, Cory, I said, standing up and slinging my black leather purse over my shoulder. I looked at the high school group who were all watching us in silence. No one tried to defend Cory. Even the underclassmen who had been his loudest cheerleaders were now looking down at their plates, too embarrassed to meet my eye. And as for the bet, I added, looking directly into Cory's eyes. Cory froze. The memory of the graduation dinner, the loud, mocking words he had spoken in front of everyone, seemed to hit him like a physical blow. If she loses weight and looks half as good as Bella, I'll kneel and apologize. But we all know that'll never happen. The silence in the restaurant was absolute. Even the waiters had stopped walking, their eyes fixed on the tall, beautiful girl in the black coat and the boy who was trembling before her. Wendy. Cory whispered, his lips trembling, his eyes wet with tears of pure, raw humiliation. I was just joking back then. You know how the guys are. I had to show off. I'm waiting, Cory, I said, my voice eerily quiet. Cory looked at Carter, then at Bella, and finally at me. Slowly his knees buckled. He didn't fall to the floor in a dramatic, romantic swoon. He dropped to his knees on the dirty, wet floorboards of the restaurant, his hands clutching the hem of my trench coat, his face buried in his hands as he began to cry, the dry, pathetic sobbing of a boy who had realized too late that his cruel jokes had cost him his only treasure. I'm sorry, Cory sobbed, his voice raw, stripped of all his wealth and his small-town arrogance. Wendy, I'm so sorry. I loved you. I've always loved you. I was just too stupid to admit it. I looked down at his wet, pale face. For 8 years, I had believed his approval was my only key to happiness. I had believed that if I could only make him smile, the weight and the whispers didn't matter. But as I looked at him kneeling in the dirt, I realized the truth. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel a sense of triumph. I felt nothing but a profound, hollow pity. Get up, Cory, I said, gently pulling my coat out of his grip. You look pathetic. I turned on my heel and walked out of the restaurant, the sound of my heels echoing like a drumbeat in the quiet room. 3 years later, the Pacific coast was beautiful in the winter. The ocean was wide blue and completely free of the gray fog of Oak Ridge. The air was warm, smelling of salt and dry grass, and the sun cast a wide golden path across the water of the Santa Monica Bay. I sat in my private studio on the top floor of the Broad Art Center, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hand. On the massive canvas in front of me, a large, beautiful painting was nearly finished. It was a depiction of a girl running along a river trail at dawn, her face pale but her eyes bright, her body light and radiant under a clear, infinite sky. A quiet knock sounded on the glass door. Wendy. I looked up. Carter was standing by the entrance, dressed in a neat charcoal sweater, his hair styled back, looking mature, confident, and entirely at ease. He was holding 2 tickets for the Regional Art Gallery's winter exhibition. The advisor said your piece has been approved for the center wall. Carter smiled, walking over to stand beside my easel. They're calling it the highlight of the season. Thank you, Carter, I said, offering him a warm, genuine smile. Carter was everything Cory had never been. He didn't mock my ideas to prove his superiority. He listened to my drafts, respected my logic, and when my shoulder ached from drawing for 12 hours straight, he would quietly make me hot honey, lemon tea, and set it on my desk. He didn't walk 3 steps ahead of me. He walked beside me. I closed my sketchbook, took a sip of my warm tea, and let the clean, cold wind off the Pacific carry the last dry leaves of the past away into the endlessly beautiful horizon ahead.